Welcome to the Select Board's meeting of Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. Please join the board in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Canty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight's meeting will be taking place in a hybrid format. We will have members of the board joining us in person. We may have members of the board joining us virtually. Members of the public are able to attend in person at Town Hall or virtually via the Zoom webinar platform. Members of the public may also watch this meeting on PAC TV on Comcast Channel 9 or Channel 47, and the Zoom link is included on the agenda that is posted on the town website.
The Select Board will be going into executive session. Mr. Canty?
The Select Board will hold an executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the Chair so declares. This is in relation to PEC insurance coverage negotiations. Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we enter into executive session at this time.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Mahoney. Mr. Mahoney? Yes. Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Blutzer?
Yes.
And myself, yes. The board will be returning at approximately 6 p.m. Thank you. And I'm just going to take one thing out of order. Mr. Trifoletti's here, and it's the subject on the special municipal employee designation, as he can't make the meeting next week, and we have a tri-board meeting next week. So he's leaving for somewhere tonight, and I would like to just move this one item for us, please.
The Select Board may know there are a number of boards and people in the town that are designated special municipal employees, which allows officials to appear before other boards and committees without a conflict. Back in 1963, Town Moderator Reuben Winokur filed a request for such a designation, but for some reason that was filed in error. It was determined that it was granted to him as a person and not in the office. When I was elected to the school committee in '87, it was necessary to get the whole board designated, which happened. And then I came back before the Board of Selectmen in 1992 and requested the designation. It was granted. Since that time, recently in checking with the town records with our current clerk, she was able to determine and confirm that the moderator is in the database as having been designated as a special municipal employee. However, she was unable in her initial search to be able to find the backup for that. So I'm here before you this evening to ask that the board ratify and confirm the action taken by the 1992 Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Mr. Trifoletti. Questions or comments from the board? No? No. Okay, go ahead. Mr. Canty.
Mr. Trifoletti, so my understanding, we wouldn't be making you a special municipal employee. We'd be making the position of moderator.
That's correct. I'm requesting the position of moderator be designated, not me personally.
So I guess I'm unclear on how it would be in the interest of Plymouth to have the moderator be a special municipal employee. Could you articulate that for me?
Certainly. It's common in many communities, and in fact in this community it's something that has been done for decades. As you know, the special municipal employee allows the person in the office to appear before other boards and committees. So for example, if I had a client who was seeking a liquor license, it would enable me to come before the board. If I needed to go before the Historic District Commission or the Planning Board or really any other board and committee, what it does prohibit, and which has never happened in my 32-year tenure, is it would prohibit coming before the town meeting. And if I had any matter that was a conflict before the town meeting, I would recuse myself. and I have recused myself one time when there was discussion about the health insurance benefits for town officers. But the purpose of the statute is to allow people to run for office, serve the town, and still participate before other boards and committees. And certainly, there's no conflict when the moderator, as well as other town officials in this town, appear before other boards and committees that are not the bodies for which they have a responsibility.
Well, respectfully, you articulated reasons why it might be in your interest, but I'm still unclear as to why it would be in the interest of Plymouth to have the moderator appear in the ways you've described, in terms of in front of this board for a license, for a liquor license, or in front of the planning board in a capacity. Could you articulate how it would be the interest of the community to have someone, anyone, yourself or someone else, serving in the position of moderator, appear in that capacity before those bodies on those types of matters? Because we do, and we have, received complaints about it in the past. So there are individuals that are concerned about it. We were under the understanding that it was something that was already in place years ago, but now we're being asked to vote on it tonight. And I'm unclear how it's in the interest of Plymouth to have the moderator be able to do those things. So that's what I'm asking.
So, again, I understood this to be a housekeeping matter because I have a recollection that I came before the selectmen back in 1992, much as I did in 1987. And again, the prior moderator back in the 1960s had previously requested, but again, his own name. Why is it a good idea? Because we want to encourage everyone in the town to consider being involved and active in the town and to not be deterred from serving on a board or committee or serving as an elected official. And if there's not a conflict, then that's the reason why we have the statute. That's the reason why we have the rules. There may be times when people complain because they may not want a person. They may have other reasons why they wouldn't, the example, I guess, would be the liquor license. If they wouldn't want a particular attorney to appear before this board because they oppose the liquor license, I can imagine that might be a reason, but that's not in the town's interest. I mean, the town has an interest to encourage people to participate in town government, and also this is consistent with what happens in other communities, and it's why we have the statute that allows for the select board to grant this. And the select board over the years has granted this approval for many boards and many elected offices. There's a long list.
Absolutely.
Well, for example, in terms of it being a deterrent, for example, the select board can't make itself a special municipal employee. So, for example, a lawyer serving on the select board couldn't do those things, even if they wanted to do those things, even if the board wanted to allow them to do those things. So, and a special municipal employee is the exception, not the rule. The rule is that you can't do it. So you're asking us to make an exception for the position of moderator. The standard is you can't do it. So I think there needs to be a showing of why we should make an exception, not a showing of this is a housekeeping matter, we shouldn't think about it. That's my position. If we're going to be making an exception, there should be a reason to make that exception. And I'm not hearing, in my opinion, a reason that is in the community's interest for the position of moderator to have that ability, whereas the other paid town officers can't do it. So if you have a reason, I'd welcome it. But I'm hearing reasons why it's in the interest of the office holder, and I understand that. Everybody's got to make a living. And $2,000 a year is not paying the bills. But the standard is that you're not able to do this, and you're asking for an exception, and I would need to be able to justify that to people. If it happened in 1992 when I was 6 years old, that wouldn't be something I'd have to justify. But now that I'm 38 years old sitting here, it's a different story. So if you have anything else specifically as to how it's a benefit, I'd love to hear it, but that's where I'm stuck on, Mr. Triffiletti.
Mr. Canty, this board has granted it or prior boards have granted that designation to many positions in the town of Plymouth. And I guess conversely, I would say it is not against the interest of the town to designate the office of moderator as a special municipal employee, nor was it against the town's interest to designate the entire school committee or the planning board or the many other offices in the town that have received that status. In fact, I would argue that to single out the office of the moderator as the one that you're not going to grant the special municipal employee status might be a question as to why we would do it. Why would you say that it is in the town's interest to designate all of these other boards, committees, and offices except the moderator? What's the difference in terms of the rationale for the town? And I would argue that it's in the town's interest to have previously designated all of these boards, committees, and offices as they are currently designated special municipal employees, and that they should continue, and that there would be no reason to classify or discriminate against the office of the moderator.
But we're not discriminating. You're asking us to make it accept. The standard is you can't do it. And making someone a special municipal employee is to give them an exception. And these prior actions by prior boards, we have a list of people dating back to 1963 that were made. I think there were 25 positions that were made in 1963. I was negative 22 years old at the time, so I don't feel a tremendous amount of guilt about what happened in 1963. But now that I'm being asked to make an exception, I need to be able to justify making the exception because state statute says you can't do it. So I don't accept the argument that we have to do it because it's been done in the past. Each one of these should be individually vetted for appropriateness, reasonableness, and whether it meets the standards of the community. The fact that other boards for other positions have done it in the past doesn't hold a lot of water for me. I need to know why it's in the interest of the community for the position of moderator to have this specifically. I would be asking the same thing if it were any other position coming up and asking for this. Thank you.
Mr. Mahoney?
Mr. Trifoletti, so could you, what happened in '92? Did the board vote to appoint you, give you these special privileges, or was it a bunch of different people at the time?
Well, it wasn't this current board, no. It was a different board of selectmen.
Yeah, I don't want to go into dates like Mr. Canty just did. I am aware it was 32 years ago.
Right.
What was it, just you, or was it a slate of individuals?
When I came in '87, it was the entire school committee because I was serving on the school. I got elected at that time, and so I had to come before this board of selectmen and request the entire committee. In '92, I came alone after the election.
Representing the position that you currently hold?
Correct.
Okay, so is this something that has to be revisited every certain amount of years, or was that vote initially going to good forever, or what happened?
So what happened was recently there was a complaint, and in checking with the town clerk and checking with the State Ethics Commission, it became apparent in talking to the current clerk and the prior clerk that there was a record in the database that the office of moderator was one of the offices in the town that was listed as having been given special municipal employee designation. However, the current clerk was unable to find the backup for that. And so as kind of a belt and suspenders approach, I thought I would come before this board and ratify and confirm the action that was taken. It's my position that unless the board wants to revoke it, then this is really unnecessary because the database does designate that the moderator is one of the offices that was previously designated and given special municipal employee status.
1 second.
And the clerk couldn't provide anything tangible for us to see to validate that. Is that why?
No, the clerk was able to confirm that the town database contained a list of the offices that had been given special municipal employee status, and the moderator was included in that list. When she then went to check for backup for that, and she could not find it.
Okay, that's,
Mr. Brandisi, then Mr. Helm.
If I could fill in some of the details. So as Mr. Triffiletti pointed out, this was brought to our attention. We checked with the State Ethics Commission. They did not have the moderator position listed on their database. We then checked with the town clerk's database, which is basically an access database that had the moderator position listed in the database. We have the ability now to do to search our records electronically. We had our archivist research all the records going back to 1962, and then generated a list of positions based upon the meeting minutes, which prior select boards have voted for special municipal employees. In that search of those meeting minutes, we could not locate any meeting minutes that appointed the moderator as a special municipal employee. However, there was a document that was uncovered in 1998. It was from the Selectman's office. It was CC'd to then Town Clerk Larry Pizer, that identified approximately 10 positions that were given to the State Ethics Office for this special designation. And that was, again, in 1998. In that listing that was sent to the State Ethics Office, again, there was no identification of the moderator's position as a special municipal employee. So based upon our research and items that were sent to the State Ethics Office, we don't have any evidence that this vote was ever taken.
Thank you. Mr. Helm?
I was just going to point out exactly what the town manager pointed out, that we now have the ability to search all select board records and meeting minutes for a concept such as special municipal employee, and I have a rather complete list of 79 that have been invoked since 1963. And the only one that even mentions the town moderator is one that was done incorrectly, where they granted it to a particular person. And by statute, they cannot be designated to a particular person. They have to be designated to a position or a committee. And I also have the note from the select board to the State Ethics Committee that the town clerk at the time was CC'd on, and the list does not include the town moderator. So what, in my mind, we would be voting on tonight would be whether or not to grant this status, because in my estimation, from all the records we have, regardless of what Attorney Trifletti is saying, is that there is no record that the select board ever designated this position. They did designate this position, but they designated it in a person's name, which invalidated it. So, and as has been pointed out, it does not carry with the person. So, you know, Attorney Trifletti is correct that when he left the school committee, that he needed to re-up the since he was town moderator, the office of town moderator. There does not seem to be any record that happened. So once again, I would say that tonight, what we would be considering is whether or not to grant the special municipal employee designation to the town moderator's office.
Okay, and just so you know, we have the right to limit or put a time on any of these positions, whether it's 2 years or, you know, with discussion. I don't think we should appoint anybody for nothing to do with you. Even the term moderator, I think it's something that should be visited annually, because I think this is what happens sometimes for whatever reason. And second off, I would like to see us, if we can, vote anything that we do have record on right off. And let's start over, and let all the individuals or the committee or whatever it might be come before us with a term limit on it. And I think that would clean up a lot of, you know.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could, we agree. I've been working with town council and town clerk. We'd like to come back to the board at a future date with a policy on how the select board will manage these positions moving forward. Because again, doing that search, we realized that there were positions that were appointed going back to 1963. And in essence, those are in perpetuity unless we do something about those. So we plan on coming back in the next 4 weeks with a policy.
Okay, Mr. Blitzer?
Yes. Steve, Mr. Moderator, you're paid a stipend from the town just like we are, so it makes you a paid town employee. You know, transparency is a word that we hear all the time, and I've heard it so many times in the last 2 or 3 years. And for the sake of transparency, I just don't think it's a good look seeing a town employee representing a party against the town of Plymouth or any board or committee of the town of Plymouth. It's not a good look. And it's also, it doesn't even look good representing clients before committees and boards either, because you have a position of influence. And I'm not accusing you of using your influence, but it really is that kind of a position. So I just don't think it's a good look. So I'm not in favor of this special employee. If you're going to be a paid employee, I don't think you should be able to represent. There's plenty of other, you're a great lawyer. I know, I've seen you at court. And I just don't think coming before boards, committees, the town, I don't think you should be able to do it as your position of moderator. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, Mr. Helm?
I was going to wait until discussion, but I'm not sure we're actually going to have a motion on this. I just want everybody to know what's going on here. General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 17, acting on behalf of others, prohibits municipal employees from representing a private party before municipal boards or department acting as an agent or attorney for a private party in connection with any matter of direct and substantial interest to the town, or accepting pay or other compensation in connection with any matter of direct and substantial interest to the town. That is Section 17. Okay, you can void that for particular offices by invoking the special municipal employee, by designating somebody a special municipal employee. They then are exempt from the restrictions, meaning they can represent private parties before municipal boards, okay, act as an agent for private parties in connection with a matter of interest to the city or town, receive pay or other compensation in connection with matters involving the city or town. That's what we're talking about here tonight. I'm going to give an example of a town. We like to do that here in Plymouth, is look at what other towns are doing. This is the town of Northfield. This is what they say. Quote, the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Section 268A, Section 17, are intended to prevent divided loyalties and any appearance of unfair or special advantage. As the State Ethics Commission states, cities and towns are entitled to undivided loyalty by their municipal employees. The Select Board strongly believes that in order to promote public confidence in the administration of the town government, a municipal employee's loyalty must lie first with the town, and that special municipal employee status should be granted only in very limited circumstances, which, by the way, is what Select Board Member Canty was trying to get to. The board is of the opinion that in general, positions, committees, and boards that set public policy, have regulatory authority, or have appointing authority, which the town moderator does, should not be granted special municipal employee status. Let's just talk about the history of special municipal employee status in the town of Massachusetts so everybody is aware. It was first, the study of the database, which goes back to 1962, shows that on April 27th, 1963, the Select Board gave special municipal employee status to 25 positions, all in one night, 25 positions. So if anybody feels that there was ever a sign hung out in front of Town Hall saying, open for business, insiders welcome, you can look at April 27th, 1963 is the date that sign went up. Since 1963, there have been a total of 79. And let me just read some of the committees. Harbor Committee, Historic District Committee, the Master Plan Committee, the Planning Board, twice. The Advisory and Finance Committee, Capital Expenditures Committee, the Charter Review Committee, the Constables, the Retirement Board, the Design Review Board, and I would argue that might make sense because they're architects who probably work in this town, Plymouth Development and Industrial Commission, which is the what we call the foundation now, Plymouth Housing Authority, Plymouth Redevelopment Authority, Plymouth School Committee twice, by the way, the Zoning Board of Appeals twice, okay? Had they not mistakenly identified particular people with certain positions and therefore invalidated them, it would have included Town Moderator, Board of Health, Conservation Commission, this is a good one, the Assessor's Office, the Select Board, illegal, but they tried to do it anyway, the Parks Department, and the Airport Commission. Okay, it would have taken me less time to name the commissions that have not, and committees that have not been given this. And this is basically what Attorney Trifoletti was referencing, okay? But I'm referencing it because it's out of control. It is not good government to do this. These we should be looking at Northfield's example, where they are only under very special circumstances. Okay, it is clear from my research into this that it didn't matter, that there were no special circumstances necessary or required in the past by the Select Board. And I hope that we are a different type of Select Board and that we're going to require that it be special, that special needs of the town, not the committees or the position. Okay, it's the special needs of the town as we are representatives of the residents. And I just think that I think that Chairman Quintal is absolutely correct. We need to revisit it all. In 1998, it appears the Select Board did make an adjustment because, as the town manager mentioned, they sent it to the State Ethics Commission, a list. Advisory and Finance Committee is still on it. The Conservation Commission is still on it. The Design Review Board, Fire Building and Study Committee, the Harbor Committee, the Historic District Committee, the Inland Fisheries Committee, the Permanent School Building Committee, the Personnel Board, Plymouth Development and Industrial, once again, the foundation. The Retirement Board is still there. The Town Hall Building Committee, the Board of Voting Registrars, and the Zoning Board of Appeals is still there. I wholeheartedly agree with revisiting all of these. And, maybe at some future meeting posted on the agenda, voiding all of these and then reviewing them again. But as it stands right now, I cannot support adding the town moderator position to the list of special municipal employees.
Any other comments from the board? Questions? I see the town clerks here and town council. Did you want to add anything to the conversation? No? Okay. Mr. Canty.
If we don't want the moderator position to have this designation because the records reflect that it has not been granted, but there was some commentary about it potentially having been granted, do we want to make a motion to make it unambiguous that the position is not granted special municipal employee status?
If the board so see fit, yes, the pleasure of the board.
I would make a motion that the position of town moderator not be granted special municipal employee designation.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Helm. Discussion? Mr. Bledsoe?
I vote yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next one we're going to go to is out of order, is Groundwater Discharge Citizens Advisory Committee. Before I turn it over to Derek, I know there's a lot of people here tonight, and the purpose of tonight is to discuss the makeup of this committee, how many members, what kind of members, I hope, and so on and so forth, because this is going to be a 2-year process. And I really don't have all the information on it, but I'm going to turn it over to Derek first.
Good evening, Derek Menezzi, Town Manager. So as the chairman pointed out, today's discussion is to talk about the formation of what we are proposing. Give me a second here. As the Wastewater Groundwater Discharge Citizen Advisory Committee. So I'll give a little bit of history. Why are we here today? There was a presentation made by Mr. Coyle, our DPW director, and staff from the sewer division relative to the sewer treatment plant and the department's pursuit of the expanded environmental notification form, which basically would modify the groundwater discharge permit. During that conversation, we learned about the potential of the discharge from the sewer treatment plant moving from the primary location at the outfall in the harbor to what is now the secondary location at the filtration beds. That would then become the primary, and then the secondary would be the outfall. So we actually met with a number of citizens after that conversation here in this room. We heard them loud and clear that they were really asking the select board to consider this advisory committee. So we are here as staff today to talk about our recommendations to the advisory committee. Mr. Coyle is here to answer any questions. Mr. Gould is here to answer any questions as well. I can tell you that staff we're working with a number of residents on the drafting of this, and this document should be in your packets this evening. But just for the record, the primary function of this committee would to provide a platform for citizen input, feedback, and collaboration with town departments related to wastewater treatment and disposal. It'll also help inform the select board and the Department of Public Works to help us during the MEPA and DEP process. We are recommending that there would be 7 members. Again, this is for discussion of the board. We're thinking 7 members would be adequate, but we do think it should be a diverse group of folks and that it should be balanced. We think that it should represent community members, which would include folks from local government, environmental organizations, the local industry, so for example, the fishing industry, academia, and potentially just folks from the general public. The primary mission of this group, and I'll read this, would be to solicit public input and feedback on the proposed groundwater discharge increase at the wastewater treatment plant. Number 2, assist in community outreach efforts between Public Works and the community on the proposed groundwater discharge. And number 3, inform the community on the progress and the facts of the groundwater discharge process. So as we pointed out in the past, we're early on in this process. We actually asked DPW to come before the board in December because there was still a public comment period that was open. So we're expecting this is going to take at least another 12 to 18 months or probably even longer. So there's plenty of time for citizen input during this process, and it's our expectation that this committee will help us engage the community, get community feedback so that we can use that information as we make decisions moving forward. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the board? Mr. Canty?
So I would say two things. Number one, I agree with the recommendations. I think 7 is a good number. It's big enough that you have a diversity of opinions, but not so big that you can't get the work done. And that you have quorum issues as well as people get busier. I know there is a lot of community interest about this. I don't know how many people that are interested in it now saw it when it came before the board last. During my lunch break today, I watched the presentation on this that we received back on December 12th. It's about an hour long. So anyone that is interested in knowing what was presented to the board at that time, you can go on PAC TV's website and look at that presentation, and it's very detailed about what the proposal is. But that may be a good place for interested members of the community to start and get some basic information. But I think that having a Citizens Advisory Committee makes sense. I think the composition makes sense, and I intend to support this.
Thank you. Mr. Helm?
Question for the town manager. In regards to Selectman Canty's observations and review of the last meeting, and the lengthy time that we spent discussing it, it was my takeaway that we were moving forward with presenting this to the state. Am I incorrect, or am I correct at that takeaway from that time, but we're taking a step back and allowing this advisory board to have a say in what goes forward?
At the time of that presentation, the DEP was having their public comment period. So there is still many months ahead of us as far as going through that process. I'll defer to Mr. Coyle to talk about the MEPA process if he has time.
Thank you, sir. Bill Coyle, DPW Director. So the MEPA process, the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, we began that process back in September when we submitted the expanded environmental notification form to MEPA. They had a public process that was continued until, I think, into December when they closed that process, and they issued their MEPA certificate with their MEPA scoping, which identifies what we need to evaluate going forward. The town submitted an expanded environmental notification form in hopes of going directly to an environmental impact report. MEPA had received numerous comments from the community, understandably so, and because of that, they are requiring the town to move forward with a draft environmental impact report. So the next step would be this draft EIR, and then they would, again, review the project, issue their MEPA scoping, which again would identify areas we need to study, and then we would move forward to the environmental impact, the final environmental impact report at that point. So currently, the consultant, Horsley and Witten, has been working on the project, but at this point, I don't think they're putting an extended amount of effort into it because they know that we're in the process of forming this committee. We want to make sure this is an open process. We want to make sure that we get comments from the committee and from the general public before we submit the draft EIR. So I think our goal would be that we start having meetings once this committee is formed, and we would hope to submit, if things go well and we have some positive recommendations and understanding of this project, that our hopes were to file this draft EIR in the summer. That may not happen, but that was our hopes. And then it would take several months, possibly a half a year, before we'd even get the EIR process. So as town manager indicated, this is a lengthy process. It's not something that's going to happen and be completed within 6 months to a year. So it's going to be something that will be a long-term commitment with this committee, and we will certainly be meeting with them to make sure that they fully understand the project and we understand their concerns. So I don't know if that answered your question, but hopefully it did.
Mr. Helm, and then Mr.
Yeah,
Bledsoe.
just a follow-up question. So this committee would be before the EIR is submitted. Would they be able to will they be involved in creating the EIR? not just giving their opinions and stuff. Because I remember I had several issues with some of the things on the EIR. In fact, I can't remember what aspect it was, but I questioned the person the head of this project, and he basically admitted that in certain aspects they guessed. They were just guessing at some of the impacts. And I didn't think that that was a satisfactory answer. I love the idea of this advisory committee, but I think that they should be able to have an impact on the EIR and not just giving their opinions into a vacuum.
Sure, I think there's probably twofold answer to that. MEPA dictates through what they issued as a MEPA scoping on what we have to study going forward. So we have to make sure we check off all the boxes. All these items are what you have to study going forward. We, as a town, certainly representing the town, want to make sure we take the citizens' comments into consideration. So as we move forward with the EIR, the official responses need to address what was identified in MEPA's comments, we'll say. We have to address those. When we look at design alternatives, those are also identified in the scope. We can present other alternatives. I don't think it limits us to say we're only going to study these alternatives, but I think this is a long process. I think certainly we would be open to any considerations that this committee brings before us, and we would have our consultants there if they felt as though, well, that alternative wouldn't be a good idea for this reason, and then hopefully be able to explain to that person why they didn't think that was a good option. And certainly we want to work with the committee and anyone from the town that has comments. But again, the official process would be we address MEPA's concerns, but we also recognize we want to make sure we're addressing the committee's concerns as well.
Mr. Platzer?
Yes, sir. Hey, Bill, thank you. The time frame on putting this committee together, any idea? And the reason why I'm saying that is there's a lot of very concerned citizens out there about this. I got quite a few calls on this, and we also have a lot of qualified people in this town to serve in this committee. So I think it'll be a great committee. But the abutters, I just want to make sure the abutters have some say in that committee. I think we need to get something going sooner than later because, as we all know, the misinformation that gets thrown around this town it's just incredible. So, I don't want a bunch of negative stuff being thrown out here before people I want people to get the right information, and I want them to know that they've had some input in what you're going to do. So time frame, any?
Mr. Bletcher, so typically when we make these recommendations, we like to advertise for up to 30 days. Certainly we can bring the applications forward, as we receive them. But I think it would be good to try to get the body of the potential candidates in first so that you have a better sense of all the applications that are coming forward. Again, we want to make sure it's balanced. One thing I did fail to recognize is that, again, it would be up to you, but in the recommendation, we are recommending that maybe a select person would like to be on this committee and potentially chair the committee as well. And then we'd have, 3 individuals that are focused on Eel River, maybe 3 individuals that are focused on the harbor. So again, we have more of a balanced approach. Again, to answer your question, we'd like to advertise for 30 days, come back by the end of April with a number of candidates for potential consideration. I do want to just make it known that in your admin notes today, we have a new policy on how we vet candidates. So this cohort of applicants would be a part of that new policy and would have to undergo a Corey check.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Brandisi? Okay, bring it back to the board. Any idea on the makeup other than what Devick just touched on? Well, I have a question for you, Devick. Excuse me. Will they have any town staff on the committee? Like I see Mr. Gould out there, and
So we will have town staff that will support the committee, but will not be a voting member of the committee.
okay. So they'll have access to that, and
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
And I will just point out that we always like an end date to our committee work. We have, probably over 50 boards and committees, and some of them continue. We are proposing an end date. Once the permit is issued, then this committee we're proposing would then end its work.
Any questions or comments from the board? Waiting the board's pleasure.
I would make a motion to approve the recommendation for creating the committee, advertising the positions, and proceeding with the process, consistent with the presentation and backup materials.
And ending upon its,
And ending upon the issuance of the permit as outlined.
okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Helm. Discussion?
That-
Mr.
that's
Mahoney?
for a number of 7.
No discussion? Okay, I call for a vote. Mr. Blitzer?
I vote yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Yes, would you like to say something? Please identify yourself for the record. Make sure the green light's on.
Green lights on. Janice Rushforth, I'm a citizen of Plymouth. First of all, thank you, and thanks to the town for doing this. I think what got us here was many citizens felt blindsided because we didn't know this had been applied for or the process was going forward. So what I think the citizens really want right now is open and up to see and not say, oh, we're going to be filing this on Thursday. We want to be involved in the process 100% the whole way and work with the town. So thank you for doing this, and hopefully we can, and we do believe that it should be a balanced committee if this is going to work for the town. So thank you for this and for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure when you watch the tape, Mr. Canty, if memory recalls, it was new to this board, what you saw, what we saw on prime time. And I don't think it was the DPW directors or Mr. Gould's intention to hide anything or slip anything by. It just was up in the process. And the minute I heard it, from living in town and, a little experience I do have, I knew that there was going to be this kind of concern. So I'm sorry it took a little while to get to this point, but there's a lot of things going on in this town, and we're taking them one at a time. So I thank you for your patience. It will be open, and stop by or call any of us at any time that you feel, or write a letter that something isn't where you think it should be. And, I can speak for me, but I'm sure I'm speaking for the whole board here.
And you, Mr. Chairman, you did mention at that hearing that you were interested in what abutters had been notified, and you knew that people would be concerned about it.
Well,
So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
But
So you've been consistent since the beginning.
Thank you. So that being said, I guess we'll see you all soon and get your applications in, and it'll be advertised, correct? Okay, thank you. We're just going to take a 5-minute recess. The next item on the agenda, Ginny, I'd like to have Bob Betters come in, if that's possible. Mr. Betters, you there?
I'm here, yes.
Okay.
I'm here.
You're
Can you
on.
hear me?
Yes.
I'm on. Okay. All right. Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. For the record, my name is Bob Betters. I'm appearing tonight on behalf of the Plymouth Education Foundation. I've been in front of the board on previous years. And I'm here again to extend a personal invitation to board members and to people who are tuning into this meeting from the community to attend the 13th annual gala for the Plymouth Educational Foundation. It's scheduled for Saturday, April 6th from 6 to 11 p.m. at the Pavilion at Pine Hills. Reservations per person are $80, and they may be booked or donations made on our website, which is PlymouthEducationFoundation.org. Just a little bit of the background, and I'll be very brief. Plymouth Education Foundation is a nonprofit that provides grants for Plymouth Public School programs and opportunities primarily not funded by tax-based revenues. The Education Foundation also provides a total of $15,000 per year in scholarships for graduating seniors at Plymouth North and Plymouth South. Since we began our fundraising in 2010, we provided over $250,000 for grant programs for the schools and for other nonprofits in the area for educational initiatives and for scholarships. So I think it's a great cause. It's one that I believe in. I'm just urging people in the community to consider attending the gala or otherwise making a donation. That really concludes my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions from board members for Mr. Betters? No, I think that's it, Bob. And thank you for all your hard work and efforts in carrying on that annual foundation.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to move on to the airport expansion project. Matthew Cardillo, airport manager.
I'll cut off Matt here, but Ken Fosdick, Airport Commission, fellow commissioners here, Doug Kershaty, Paul Worcester, and Tom Hurley, and Matt is our airport manager, and he'll talk in a minute. Mr. Chairman, thank you, and board members for this opportunity to update you on our master planning process. We came about 2 years ago here to announce that under the federal program, the FAA has a capital improvement program, and you're required every 10 years to update your master plan so that they're prepared in their schedule of allotting funds to give out funds. And so we initiated that process. We then went to Carver and the Carver Select Board and told them. We met with the West Plymouth Steering Committee. We went to South Meadow Village, and we then had 3 different planning meetings at the airport. We are about to receive money. Part of this long-range planning process is that the airport, the FAA puts money aside to redo runways. And it's a long-term process, of 20 years, 25 years, and they do that just as the DPW do to repair roads and whatever. So at that time, they ask us to update, to make what things can we improve on, that we can improve on safety. Just as with roads, you might put guardrails up or lines, or with cars, you might have seat belts, and now we have airbags, et cetera. So what we did is we asked our engineers to then go through a process and give us some alternatives on ways that we can improve what exists. So I would ask Matt to come up here and just run quickly through what we ran, what we did to come to our conclusion.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you to the chair and the board members for having us tonight. Like Ken was saying, we were going, I'll go into a little bit of the history of how we've been moving forward with this, so if you don't mind watching this presentation real quick. So the project history overall, so it's Springtown meeting in April of 2021. Like Ken was saying, we got funding for the master plan update. That master plan update, as Ken was saying, identified some things that we were going to be doing, improving the runway, also improving infrastructure, and then plans for possible hangar development by people in the future. So then the next part of that that came about, so the first project we were going to do off that master plan was the runway extension. So in April of 2022, we got the money for the environmental assessment. That's the first part of this process, to go through the environmental assessment. At a Springtown meeting in April of 2023, we had more funding become available for that EA process. We were going to do it over multiple funding years, but BIL, bipartisan infrastructure law money, became available to us, so we were able to do it in one foul sweep, so we increased that. And then we also asked for the design and permitting for the request of the runway, or design and permitting for the runway. So as Ken was saying, during that master planning process, we did, or our engineer gave us 4 alternatives, and these alternatives are based on the aircraft, the design aircraft for the airport, which is a Falcon 2000. So if the Falcon 2000, if there was unconstrained lengths or unconstrained circumstances, there was no roads, no houses that had to be taken or trees taken down or any kind of wetlands, it'd be 5,500 feet. So that's that 850 foot, because we are currently at 4,650. So the 850 foot, and then the 550 foot, the 351 foot extension, and then as a requirement, there's always just a no-build alternative. So you could decide not to do it. So after discussion and some public meetings, the commission decided that they weren't going to go with the 550 or the 850 foot extension for multiple reasons: impact to wetlands, impact to abutters, removal of trees, avigation easements, stuff like that. 351 foot was the best balance for a mutual for the airport and for the abutters. So where's the next one? So here's just a little show, like this part right here, that's your 351 foot extension. This is the existing runway. It ends right there. These are your taxiways, the run-up area. So this is the east to west runway, and the Carver line is right about, yeah, that's the line right there. You can see it. So that's kind of like the zoomed in version, and this shows South Meadow Road up. Is it showing up? Yeah, South Meadow Road right up there. So then I'll go to this one, and this is going to just give you that kind of 10,000 foot view of exactly what it is. So just don't mind the blue and the red, the green and the green, the blue, and the yellow right here is what would be added during this project. So that's kind of the overview of exactly kind of where we're at. Like Ken was saying, we are in the middle of the environmental process. MEPA has, like the DPW, given us comments, and we're currently working through a draft EIR to then resubmit with our consultant for a final consideration by MEPA. So if there's any, Ken, if you wanted to continue, or any questions.
I should point out clearly that the commission has always said that we have no intention of changing the size of the airport. And the expansion, the way it's written here, is kind of a misnomer. We have said all the way along that we were intended to stay as a B2. It's a FAA ruling. Colonel Worcester can give you the details of that. That we're not, what we're doing here is for the airplanes that are currently coming to the airport. We are not increasing the size, increasing the number of jets to come. This is just for the people that are currently using it, that it gives them a little bit more of a safety margin during times of, they call it inclement, well, just I call it inclement weather and whatever. So that's where we are with the decision-making, was that we would move forward with this. We're now in the EAR. We talked a lot about MEPA tonight, and we're in the process of going through that review. The initial review came back positive. They have now asked for substantially more data, and we are supplying that. We have full intent to meet the letter and the intent of the law. We always have, and we intend to do that. The airport, the extension, the 350-foot piece, is on high land, and it doesn't impact any of the neighbors with tree removal or any of that. So we feel sure that we will be able to secure that. I would also say that the 750 acres approximately that the airport makes up in Carver and in Plymouth, vast majority in Plymouth, is we have no chemicals. We do not use salt or any other chemicals on the runways. So we've never used those PFAC, the chemicals that we use for fire retention. We've never used those. So we really think it's a very clean environment. We have one wastewater treatment plant that is currently being rebuilt, and it meets all of the state and federal regulations, and we intend to continue to keep this as a beautiful area to retain water for West Plymouth. So, answer any questions.
Mr. Canty, then Mr. Mahoney.
So you're not looking to bring in larger planes.
Correct.
It's for safety, and are you going to be able to, my understanding, I think, from the materials was that you'd be able to sell more fuel to the existing planes, that they'd be able to...
That's a byproduct of it.
Okay.
All right.
But I know that a big part of your revenue is fuel sales, right?
That is correct.
So right now, is it, my understanding is that there's one direction where the runway is that long, and then there's another section where it's not as long?
That's
This way
correct.
you'd be able to sell the same amount of fuel regardless of which way they're heading out? Is that right?
That's true. They would be able to take on more fuel. Right now, they have to leave with diminished payloads.
Right.
So now they would have the opportunity to buy more fuel from us. Typically, the jets that are coming in here are chartered that come in and drop people off, they
Yep.
refuel and take off. We also have a group on the airport that they are the charter operation. So they house their airplanes at the Plymouth Airport. They do all their maintenance at the Plymouth Airport. And they typically go off to Boston,
Yep.
to New York, pick up people and go off. So, yes, that's a byproduct, but mainly the issue here is that the people that are currently using it, the size of the airplanes that are currently using it, would be safer in all conditions, and we can sell more fuel.
And do you have I have two quick follow-ups on that. Do you have an estimate of the increased range that would give to the typical planes? I mean, I imagine it varies by model.
Yeah.
And conditions, but do you have any type of estimate on, because that would make, if you could sell more fuel, the planes leaving here can go farther, so you'd be making the airport attractive
I think that would be very dependent on the equipment.
So you don't-
I
okay.
couldn't, I don't know. whether
How much
anybody have
more?
an idea.
How much more fuel are you able to sell, do you think, to a typical
Typically,
plane?
right now, they're loading to about a third of their capacity. Now they'd be able to load to about half capacity, because they
Okay.
still don't have the 5,500 feet that they would.
That they'd need
love
to be
to have,
fully
yeah.
laden? Okay. And do you have you run any metrics on, because I know that a topic of conversation has been the revenue stream of the airport, and we're
Correct.
interested in seeing that go up. Selling more fuel would certainly help with that. Do you have an estimate on to how being able to sell more fuel to your existing customers per trip, assuming they want to buy more fuel per trip, what that would do to your financial metrics?
Well-
Yeah, we can really only stipulate it, or we can't make a 100% a guess on it, but probably maybe a 10-15% increase possibly.
Okay.
Possibly, but it depends on like you were saying, the need for it, and if they, sometimes it depends on where they're going too. They don't have to take the full load. So
Right,
it's
right.
kinda
Obviously, they'd
tough.
want to
Yeah,
have
but
to.
yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So the area in green represents the 351-foot extension,
Correct.
and that area is currently deforested. There's
Correct.
no trees there already?
Yep.
Okay. And obviously, what did you say, that's in the town of Carver?
Correct.
Correct. And what was the reception like when you went in front of the boards in the town of Carver?
When we met with the people from Carver, they looked at the four options and thought that one was a decent option, and they, many of them would have preferred we didn't do anything, but we, the impact over Carver is that the planes might be 50 feet lower than they were, which is almost a negligible as they approach on the standard approach to the airport. And in fact, going off to the east, the planes will be approximately 50 feet higher going over West Plymouth.
Okay, so I think you had mentioned earlier, Ken, that you had, I think you called it 3 listening meetings, something to that effect over at the airport. I believe that I attended, I think, the majority of one of them.
Correct.
So there was concerns about, larger planes.
Correct.
You've addressed that issue. You can't really speak to, but obviously over the course of the next couple of decades, there is a reasonable expectation that there will be an increased traffic in the volume of the planes that currently go to the airport, but there really won't be much larger planes coming to the airport.
Let me address the increased traffic. 20 years ago, the forecast was that we would be having about the same number of operations 10 years forward that we had then. It proved to be true. In fact, it was less operations. The forecast 12 years ago was that we would have about the same number of operations that we had then, and that's proven to be true. Now, the mix has changed a little bit. We have more jet traffic. It still only represents a very small percentage of the traffic, but the numbers are about the same. We don't forecast, and part of the master plan process is that forecast. We do not forecast an increase. It's forecasted to remain about the same. So it's always been a training field, and the majority of our traffic is trainers. And what's happened as we've gone through this process is people are concerned we're going to have bigger jets, which we can't have because of the size, the capacity of the runways, the width of the taxiways, et cetera. So I doubt that we'll have a little more, perhaps jet traffic over the next few years and a little less of the training activities. We have had a reaction to the noise, and the noise is basically from our small training airplanes. So we're reviewing that situation right now. And at first when we heard that, we actually have fewer training flights now than we did 10 years ago. It varies, during COVID it was practically nil, and now it's increased because of the demand for pilots. So we think that there may be some effect on the climate. We have stronger winds from almost the same direction. Airplanes have to take off into the wind. So it's impacted certain areas of our community more, and we're reviewing that right now. We only have a certain amount of control. We take a very aggressive role on noise, and our patterns, what do we call it? Our noise abatement programs. There we go. Right. Sorry. Noise abatement program. So we follow, we talk to all of our flight schools, and we counsel with them about noise-sensitive areas and how we would like them to stay away from that area. And we are going to continue to do that and take some other steps to maybe mitigate how that happens. We're not in charge of that. The FAA is in charge. As soon as the airplane takes off, it's in control of the FAA. But we do have a certain amount of persuasion, and we use that. And we ask all of our pilots not to take off from after 10 o'clock and before 6 o'clock in the morning. Does it happen? Well, we have med-flight. We have state police there. They're going to take off when there's a need. So, but our people participate in that program. They understand what our objective is. And, for example, the state police, and this is their main headquarters. They do their training here. So we had some people that when they were doing their training, there was a lot of noise. So we counseled with them. They move it around now. They go to Otis. They train there. So we have cooperation from our pilots and from our FBOs, our people there.
Just last question. We all, in today's world, we all have a heightened awareness on water how we can negatively impact that to our detriment. So you've got basically, you said 750 acres, the majority of which is permeable surfaces.
Vast majority is permeable.
Okay. How do you, not that we have winter anymore, but how do you treat a runway if you got a foot of snow? How do you do that without salt?
It's just like that's plowing regiments. Essentially, once it gets to about 2-3 inches, we start plowing. We don't stop until it stops snowing, and then we let depending on the time of the year, we let the sun do a lot of work too. We don't use any glycol or any salt or anything like that. The only thing we do use is FAA allowable, like masonry grade sand. We'll put that down for some aircraft when they're landing or departing, just for a little bit of extra grit. But other than that, it's just purely Mother Nature and our plowing regiment. So.
And as you move through this process to get this funding, I mean, the review is going to be pretty robust with respect to potential contaminants and negatively impacting the water?
That's correct. We have monitoring wells, which we will be keeping an eye on all of that. So we will. The MEPA process and the federal process is rigorous, and in fact, we've just learned that the MEPA process, as you're probably learning, is going to be even more stringent. There's going to be even more questions. So we anticipated that we were going to get our report back a month ago. We're now, they're asking many more questions, so we have to do that. We're working with the FAA. They support that. They will fund the engineering studies to be done to make that happen.
Thank you.
So, Charlie?
Hi, Ken. A couple of questions. The airport, if you talk to I'm not in the butter, but I live fairly close. I'm off of Federal Furnace on Carver Road, that end of it. And I bought my house 2000, and I see the planes all the time. And it hasn't been a problem for me, the noise, but I'm sure there's people a lot closer that the noise might affect them. How does this new extension, is there going to be increased noise, increased traffic? How will that affect the neighborhood? And the hours that you talked about, when do the fuel sales, are those mostly daylight hours, or is it?
We only have staffing during the day.
Okay.
So the fueling has to take care.
So how do the abutters feel? I see a couple shakes in the room. How do they feel about? Have you had conversations just to?
We don't anticipate larger amounts of traffic.
Yeah.
However, there'll be a little more of a switch towards the jets. When we had meetings, I remember specifically at South Meadow Village, the consensus was the jets come in and they leave very quickly. They were more concerned about the training airplanes that were in the pattern all the time. And that number hasn't changed a lot. However, it seems like we're getting more of a reaction right now. So we're trying to understand why we're getting more of a reaction. The planes, the training process have remained the same for the past 20 years, maybe before that. But there is more of a reaction to the noise, and we're going to have to figure that out. Right. There's only.
I know it's always been an issue every time anything's done at the airport. Neighbors have concerns, and the noise is the number one concern.
For example, we have in the noise-sensitive areas that the training, we counsel with the trainers that they avoid those areas. Unfortunately, there are certain spots over West Plymouth that are directly in a line with the runway that we can't move them out of that area. When weather conditions are such that we can ask them to, if the winds are light, we could ask them to use a different runway. It's still pilot discretion, but we have a certain amount of power and we can move those around. Yeah. We can counsel with these are ideas we're about to put in place or talk about, that we get some of the training process moved away from the airport. Sure, share the benefits, go over to Taunton and land in Taunton, go over and land in New Bedford and et cetera, just to relieve the pressure on those days. When we have a beautiful, clear day, we have a lot of traffic. We've had a lot of bad weather recently, and so training was minimized. When the good days come along, we get a real burst.
Does the neighborhood, I mean, I know you have a lot of input into the neighborhood, I believe. Do they have somebody that they can, if there's issues and
Yes.
problems, they can call somebody and voice their concerns?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Matt's the guy.
Matt.
He's there.
We log that, we log the time,
oh,
the
okay.
location,
Okay,
and we
good.
also,
Yeah.
we log the concern and then what our action was to
So
resolve that.
now I'm going to talk about what I feel the positive things. And I know this board and the town manager especially has been concerned over the years about making this a self-sustainable airport that makes money and pays for itself. And I know the increase, and it's not the sole purpose of this extension. I know the extension of this runway is for safety. I'm not a pilot, but I know the longer you have to land and to take off, the safer it is. I know that much about flying. But the more income this can generate, it's going to be good for this, for the sustainability of that airport. And as far as the airport goes, and again, I live, it's close, but I don't live right next to, I'm not on South Meadow, but I can tell you that I feel very lucky having MedFlight right next door. Because I can tell you, I've been on MedFlight. My daughter's been on it twice. And we are so lucky. We also have the state police there. And we did a tour, the board did a tour of the airport. And it opened a lot of eyes about the assets that we have at that airport. You know, if the folks at home don't understand, we have Cape Cod Community College there that has a aviator mechanic school, which there's 400 or 500 kids, I believe. That's what you told me, that are making $80,000, $90,000 right out of, not even before they even graduate, they have jobs. And it's high-paying jobs coming out of there. It's a great thing. There's a lot of businesses up there that I didn't know about. So we have a lot at that airport, and I think it's very important in this town. But it's also, you know, it's in a neighborhood, and we have to work together, you know, with this board with the neighborhood and listen to whatever problems. I had somebody told me today they knew this was on the agenda, and they said, you know, it'd be a great thing for the West Plymouth, just that playground, West Plymouth playground, is have the airport. Maybe they could do something to that playground, maybe spruce it up or do some things for the kids over there. I said, I'll bring it up, but that would be something that we couldn't force you to do, but just something, a goodwill for the neighbors. It'd be kind of a nice gesture for them, but you know, I mean, I'm supportive of this because I know I've had interaction with this board, and I know you listen, and I hope the neighbors. I mean, I consider myself a neighbor, but not. I don't live right next door, but I'm close enough. But I hope the neighbors feel that they can voice their issues to you. So, but I'm supportive of this. Very supportive.
Mr. Helm?
Thank you. In the materials that we received, and this was why I kind of thought the intention of this extension was, but it seems from one of your slides that the option of not extending it was an option. And it says in your material, the work proposed is intended to bring the airport into compliance with FAA design criteria. Whenever I read the word compliance, I don't read optional. I read you must. So what is it? Must we do this, or will we lose some sort of compliance issue with the FAA?
I don't believe we are out of compliance currently, so I think this is an improvement, a safety improvement. It is not a compliance issue. I'm not an attorney to say that, but I believe that's the case.
All right, no, fair enough.
Yeah.
I appreciate the response. So it isn't about, the FAA is not telling anybody you need to increase that runway 351 feet. So,
That's
okay.
the only option, what they say is, if we're going to fund you for future projects, what are you going to do to make it safer? And they want to know what we're going to do to make it better.
So it could come in to possible FAA grants in the future
Correct.
that they do not feel our runway is safe at the current length.
I don't believe it would go that far. I believe we're still in compliance.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add to Mr. Bledsoe's comments that, we, as an enterprise fund, have to generate money, and we're doing that in lots of different ways. We're increasing our fees for visiting aircraft. We're increasing our fuel prices. We're increasing our rents and leases. We just had a study done to make sure that we were competitive on our leases and how we charge for them. We, in fact, were competitive on most of it, but we did realize there are some areas that we can improve. And, over the years, we've been self-sufficient. Recently, 4 or 5 years ago, the town appropriately said, you have to pick up some more of the overhead of the town hall. We agree with that. So that was going to be phased in. It's now being phased in very quickly. I understand the pressure that you people are under, and we need to do our part. So we're doing that. But we also, all of the FAA grants, we basically fund them. It doesn't come out of town coffers. It comes out of our enterprise fund. So.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Before I accept the motion, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? You have 3 minutes, and please identify yourself for the record.
Steve Lantang, thanks for having me up here. My family's been a neighborhood of the airport for 37 years, and my wife would kick me for this, but my biggest concern is the jets. It's the window rat, those moments, not all of them, you get the window ratting moments of the jets, and it's holy crap, you duck your head. And I believe the increase will be more if you can have more payload to have people go further out. They want to there's other destinations, and vice versa. You have people from further away now can come to Plymouth because they can fill up in the airport. So it's the increased traffic of jets is my concern for the future.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on? Please come up and go ahead. You still got
I
half
think I had
a
another
minute.
So my question is compliance. Before I even came tonight, is we should know if we're in or out of compliance, right? We should know what's going on. And if we are in compliance, how did we let this happen? How did we let the jets come in to put us out of compliance? Who's accountable for that? I understand if we are out of compliance, we need to put ourselves in for safety. And everybody in town's all for med flight, Air Force. We all want them in our backyard, right? Everybody's safer, so.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Lantang, live down on Baldwin Circle. I've been here for 37 years, and the airport has changed dramatically in that time, and it has, especially in the last 3 years, in my mind. The jets that are coming in, it's a problem now. So it's unfortunate that, this is an expansion, and now we're coming and saying, well, wait a minute, it's a problem already. So that's the fear factor for us as neighbors. The planes are flying lower. They're right over our trees. My granddaughter ran in the house screaming, crying one day, over, oh my God, the plane is so low. I can call. I do talk to them. They do speak to the pilots. I appreciate that. If they're coming up with ways of moving the training, planes that are repeated over and over, I appreciate that. We just want to know, and we've asked at the other meetings, because I've gone to a couple of them, is can you keep us in mind? We are the people who are under the planes. They're coming over our house. It's not acceptable right now the way it is. So we're very fearful of more jets going through. If they're not bigger, hallelujah. But more of them, absolutely, we do not want that if we can avoid it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Murray. I'm also a neighbor of the airport. My understanding is the FAA removed the restriction of the curfew, so there's no longer a curfew for planes.
I can address that.
Yes, please do.
There was no curfew. The issue was that one of the approaches to the airport had some trees that had grown higher, and so a particular type of approach was not authorized until those trees were trimmed back. So, but there was no curfew.
Okay, thank you. My other comment is somebody asked about fueling. 10 o'clock at night, they're landing to fuel. The pumps shut down at 10 o'clock. My windows rattle, as does his, and you can feel it, and it's like clockwork in the summer. I don't even need to look at the clock. I know it's 10 o'clock because my windows are rattling. So it's a concern, and 50 feet is enough that it will impact people. The sound alone is deafening on some days. The winter, it's louder because there's nothing to buffer the sound. I grew up on the North Shore. I had Logan Airport in my backyard. I feel like I'm home, I'll be honest with you. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the public comment? I was going to ask you, yes. Let them in, please. Hi, Jen.
Hi, am I on? I'm sorry.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I'm on Sushala Way. Thank you for letting me speak. I'd be there in person, but I'm not feeling well. We live on Sushala Way. My parents built this house in '79, and my husband and I bought it about 7 years ago from my parents. And I visited for 40 years. They say that the traffic has not changed or increased, but I can tell you, and my family can tell you, because we have sat out in the backyard during summers many times with my family, my parents, and it was not as bad 7, 8 years ago than it is now in the middle of winter. I have called several times. They do allow you to speak. It doesn't change. The airport, we have been told, is very safe as it is. We have been told it's one of the safest in the country, and they're proud of that, as they very well should be. I'm grateful for that as a neighbor, that it is one of the safest in the country. The runway extension, we were told, is to accommodate one particular jet from one particular company. And we are afraid, we are nervous that it's going to increase that jet traffic 24/7. Like Lisa Murray had said, you can hear them at night. You can hear the planes. There was a couple months ago, there was a plane that took off over our neighborhood at 4:30 in the morning. That sounded like a jet because it was so low. When I call to complain, there's nothing they can say about altitude. Nobody tells me how high they can be over my house or how low they can be over my house. So 50 feet is not going to make a difference. It sounds good. It sounds like it's going to be higher, but how can you tell? We want more of a say in what happens. We want to be heard. We want changes. We realize that these pilots are in a business, but these are our homes. This is our health, and this is our peace and quiet. So thank you. I hope I didn't yell. I'm all clogged up and I don't know how loud I'm speaking.
You're doing just great. And I hope you feel better.
Are you still there?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't know if I was still on or not.
No.
I appreciate it. We just really would like you to read our letters and really take into account what the local neighbors themselves are feeling. And we have lives, and we have gatherings in our backyards. Like Lisa said, this is winter, and we can hear them constantly. My daughter can't study for AP tests at school. It's really affecting people's health and their lives. And thank you for listening. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Mr. Fosdick?
We have our meetings the first Thursday of the month, and we appreciate people coming and telling us of issues they have. For many years, we had very little attendance. We're now having more attendance, and we're endeavoring to understand exactly what the issue is. And when I say that, I understand that people are complaining about the noise, and then we have to figure out why is it increasing and what's going on. So we are working at that. We take our neighbors seriously.
Thank you. Mr. Helm?
While you're up, a question regarding the Zoom participant. She mentioned that one of the reasons for this expansion is to accommodate a jet that cannot land or take off at our airport. So is that correct?
I think she's referencing when I was during the presentation, there's a design aircraft that they use. There's one aircraft that's based at the airport of Falcon 2000, and that's the design aircraft. So I think that's what she was saying. But it's
the current runway and is sufficient for the Falcon, whatever it is.
At a lower gross takeoff weight than it could.
Okay,
so
it's gross takeoff weight.
So yeah.
Okay, all right, but it's not a different design aircraft that has never been able to land or take off before that will now be able to land and take off. Okay, thank you.
Correct. We're a B-2 airport. The weight of the runway, the weight of the airplane can only be so heavy. The wingspan can only be so much. So when the FAA uses an airplane to determine what the best position is, that's what they use. But no, you can't be any bigger or heavier.
Thank you. We have two more people, okay? Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Linda Terrell. I'm not sure if you are looking for me to speak, but I'm ready to speak.
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
So my question is, a concern is that we're a destination town, okay? We've been considered now a destination town with all these fabulous restaurants, wonderful things that we have done in this town. So the concern is that the airport traffic is going to increase just based on that, and no one's addressed that. No one's addressed that. We are a destination town. We've had people working on this to make us a destination town. Not what I want, but it's what, is necessary for development and growth. And that's what we are. We're considered a destination town. So how do you explain that the airport traffic isn't going to increase when we're a destination town? People are coming in from all over the place. They want to go to Maribel. They want to go downtown. They want to enjoy all these wonderful things we have. Happy to be living in Plymouth, not happy to see this tremendous growth that's affecting our ability to enjoy the small town. So the question is, how does this not affect the traffic at the airport? Hello?
As much as we have more tourism, I must tell you very little of it comes in through the airport. Most of the people come here for training, or they come here for a reason. They have a business and they're dropped off. They don't typically come here for tourism. So as we attract more tourism, there might be an almost insignificant amount of increase we anticipate. And the studies that our engineers do are based upon FAA rules and regulations and on other airports in our community. And over the last 20 years, they've proven to be correct. So we continue to believe that we will not have a great increase in traffic.
Are we not a destination town? Are we not categorized as a destination town in many advertising? And do we not promote ourselves as come to Plymouth? Do you think people that own planes or can hire a plane or hop on a plane aren't going to come to Plymouth? Because that's not good for us either.
Okay, thank you. One more, Ginny? Hello?
Hello. Yes, hi, it's Meg Sheehan. Thank you for taking my question. I'm curious about the financial arrangements with the airport. I understand that the town owns about 800 and 900 acres there that the airport is on. And the Plymouth Independent reports that the airport has a $20 million payroll with 400 employees. But it appears that the airport's budget is really $500,000 for payroll. So in the enterprise budget, are you talking about being self-sustaining from collecting lease money? Is that from just airport-related businesses? Or is it from the daycare and the other buildings and properties that I believe are on the airport property or in the airport park that pay rent, and where does the rent go? That's my question.
Yeah, Meg, thank you for the question, Matt, airport manager. Yeah, so she is correct. Our end revenue is generated from fuel and from land leases, and that the payroll is that, and we are self-sufficient through that. I think the numbers that she's referencing are from the 2019 economic impact study that MassDOT Aeronautics did, and it's stating the economic impact of the airport as a whole. So at the airport as a whole, there's 368 jobs that are at the airport, not airport employees, but with the associated businesses at the airport. And there's $20 million of payroll through those businesses and those 368 employees with an economic output of around $62 million. And that's number 2 in the state behind Westfield Barnes. So we are a huge economic driver for the region.
Thank you. We get 3 minutes? Are you all set, Ms. Sheehan? Okay.
Just a follow-up question. I understand that point, but for example, the daycare. Does the daycare pay rent to the airport, or is it what buildings are on the airport property that the taxpayers own that is paying rent to the airport to keep the airport going and to pay for the expansion and to support the private flight schools and whatnot in the airport? That still seems unclear.
I'd be more than glad to answer all those questions, Meg, and as public information. The airport, the town owns the airport land. We lease the land. We charge them a lease rate. That generates funds for us. Everyone pays a lease rent to the airport. Then their leasehold improvements are taxable by the town, and we pay property taxes for the buildings on the airport. So we generate our funds from those leases. We don't own the buildings. The leasehold improvements are owned by the individuals and/or the companies that are there.
Thank you. Okay, that's about 3 minutes. So, thank you for calling. Oh, she's gone. I'll have a good night. Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak? On the...
One question?
Just, excuse me, just one more. That's it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Does increased payload of fuel increase sound? As an engineer, I would say yes. You need more power to take off more payload, so sound will increase of the jets.
I believe that they use full power to take
Yeah, they're going to use the same amount of power either way to take off. So I spoke with the operator at the airport, and I asked them that question, and they said no. They're going to take off at 100% power like they would on any other day. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring it back to the board. We don't need a motion on this, Derek, right? Okay, it's informational. The only thing that I'd like to say is that you have a brand-new wastewater treatment facility going in there, and I hope that the maintenance, that's a big word here in Plymouth, maintenance and upkeep, you stay with it, so we don't find ourselves redoing the whole thing. I know you have to after so many years, but please, we were lucky to have ARPA money to do that, so let's take care of it and make that part of it. And I visit there at the little restaurant there. What is it, Plain Jane's? Yeah. I visit there a lot in the summer and bring the kids and to watch the planes go out. And I also understand people's concerns. The planes, the jets are louder, and from what you said so far, you are trying. So that's really what I can ask you at the time. So thank you very much. Mr. Helm.
Yeah, just a comment. It seems that the residents who have spoken tonight don't feel that they have a voice. Whether that you feel that's true or not, that is their perception. And perception has a funny component of reality to it. We're not here to tell you what to do about that, but if in your thinking and planning, you could initialize some sort of outreach that might tie into getting more and more people to your monthly meetings. And I don't know whether it's an email thing to the residents or something like that, some sort of social media, so that you could notify them. Our meeting is a week from now, and then our meeting is 3 days from now. And in the morning, tonight we're having a meeting, just to remind them so that they do feel like they're being included in these processes. Because that's my big takeaway from tonight. So just a suggestion. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move back to some kind of, at the beginning, licenses. We have 4. Any questions on any of them, or pleasure of the board?
If there are no questions, I would make a motion to approve the 3 licenses as a group.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Blutzer. Discussion, Mr. Helm.
Yeah, my only concern with the licenses and moving them as a group is that Kenny has sat at this meeting this entire time. And if we just pass it, Kenny will have not been able to get up and talk to us. That's sort of a joke, so just FYI. I don't know if he really cares or not, but I just noted that Kenny has been...
It wasn't on purpose.
Kenny has been very hearty this evening.
Thank you. So we have a first and a second. Discussion, we haven't. Any more discussion? Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Blutzer?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Unanimous, thank you. Then we have 9 administrative notes. And one of them is the M host community agreement. And I would just like to ask if they want to touch on that a bit, or just Okay, is there any questions, or how does the board want to handle it? You want to take any separate, or?
If there are no questions, I would make a motion to approve them as a group.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. Mr. Blitzer?
Yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Myself, yes, unanimous. I'm sorry you also had to wait, but, you know, in this game, someone's in the beginning, and there's just, I know. All right, thank you. On? Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't know.
We're on
It's,
public comment anyway, so.
This is Ginny Davis, Precinct 4. The board will vote to approve the Oak Street Extension Agreement dated. What is that on Oak Street? What's the agreement? Is that to do with the Oak Street building? I'm not sure.
That's the affordable housing project.
Thank
That's
you.
CPC funded.
I wondered if it was.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
very much.
we have a grant agreement with the Housing Authority.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, speaking of the grants, how much money have we invested in that so far, between grants and, I'm asking for one reason. And the one reason, there's been a lot of controversy, and I think it's 16C, but my friend will, right? In Red Brook, and the affordable housing for the seniors. And everybody, not everybody, but it kind of took a turn frontwards, backwards. And it seems to be how much money we spent. But when you look and see, I mean, does anybody know how much we spent? I bet Everett does on Oak Street. You'll see him sitting out there. And how many units were we getting? Is it two?
Well, the CPC approved funding was $1,038,000 for 3 units.
Right.
2 separate
Right.
appearances at town meeting to reach that total.
And this agreement is the 381 most recently approved.
Okay. Sure.
Come back
Yeah,
up.
come on.
Come on up. Public comment.
Yeah. Sorry.
You can fill up
Thank you
Mr.
so
Sir.
much for allowing me to speak. Ginny Davis, Precinct 4. Thanks a lot.
okay.
Because I know there's been a lot of discussion about public comment. I went up there. This was town meeting, I believe it was in the fall that we voted on this. And there was a lot of controversy. But I went up there, and I looked and I walked around. And it's going to be for 3 handicapped people, seriously handicapped, veterans. And it costs a lot, because I talked to some construction people, too, and they said the cost of construction is insane, and especially for handicap, where everything has to be wider and all, that's why it's so much. And there's, I've got concerns, too. I want to see something being done there. But it's a beautiful little building. When I was in it, it was filled with sunlight, and I thought, wow, if I was handicapped and I could live here in a neighborhood, and the neighbors want it to happen too. So that's kind of the story. It has been, I'll be very happy when I see something being done. But that's why there was a lot of controversy about it too. Thank you.
It wasn't the controversy at Oak Street I was talking about. I was talking about the controversy in Red Brook, Article 16C, and I was comparing the amounts of money. But I do, right, yeah, and also the second thing, besides the price, is the amount of time it's taken, okay? I mean, so, we just have a difference of opinion, but. Mr. Malaguti, I believe?
Everett Malaguti, Precinct 2, and just to hearken to that subject, as we are looking forward to town meeting and looking at this past project and this future project on the docks, it's basically, if we're looking at the 3 units for Oak Street, regardless of the extended cost because of handicap requirements and all that, and then the $4 million, I believe, asked for the, I think it's 52 units, I believe, down at Red Brook. On that, the amount that is being given by the town, 62, sorry about that. The amount that's being given to the town that we're asking for CPC to utilize is roughly around $60,000 to $65,000 per unit for that development, to about roughly $200,000 to $230,000 per se per unit Oh. I'm trying to remember the numbers off the top of my head. That's why I'm going up a little bit. But you can see the difference. And I know some of that is due to time, due to COVID and constraints in that, and also actual building requirements. But if we look at comparison, apples to oranges, we can see that this is something that's needed, but we're getting a lot more bang for our buck with this future project for this, and it's also helping with the affordability more than anything, because most of our affordability is 80% AMI. This is giving us 3 different ranges of AMI, which actually helps a lot of people that are either entering into the home market or are just downsizing and can't really afford what they used to, and incomes aren't going as much as they used to, so this is helping us out a lot. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment? Yep, I was going to ask you. Yep. Hi, you out there? Hello?
Yes, hello? Can you hear me?
Yep, please state your name for the record.
Yeah, this is Kevin Doyle down at Whitehorse Beach. I'll keep it short. I got just a couple of things. One is regarding the latest 40B here, the Bartlett Pond Village, which most of you should know. It's 60 homes. It's supposed to be a 55-plus community. I've been to the last 2 meetings that it was brought up in with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they've denied dropping the age restriction. Then I spoke with Champion Builders at their open house the other night, and they said, no, the town dropped the age restriction on it, yet I've not seen this in a meeting. I contacted Town Hall and find out that the town took a $110,000 donation to be deposited into affordable housing account, something along that line. But right now on the March 18th ZBA agenda, they state the board will consider removal of the age restriction. So there's something missing here. The houses are currently being marketed without an age restriction. So is it or isn't it a 55 plus? Where's the transparency on that? 60 homes at an average of $800,000 is almost $50 million. The town settled for $110,000 to drop the age restriction. Whoever negotiated this deal left a lot of money on the table. Where's the money for the repair of the roads that they're tearing up now to in the phases that'll come up? And where's the donation to the school that backed right up to? I think we left a lot of money off the table, and I don't know if there's still time to renegotiate this contract. But people in the neighborhood are thinking, wow, that's all we're worth out of a $50 million project. I get it. Both parties don't want litigation. They don't want to get into it. They just want to settle it. But this is a sad negotiation, and I hope it's reconsidered. One other thing is that we also learned that they are no longer needing emergency exit out of the development, which was something that was part of it. They said the fire department told them that they could just drop it. That's my first thing. Secondly, I just recently, I've become diabetic in the last 2 years, and I have a lot of sharps and needles for disposal. I take injections for other things. I've always dropped my needles off at the fire department down on Sandwich Street. It's the only place in Plymouth to dispose of them. Recently, there's a sign there that says go to Bancy, which is outside of Cottage Park, which is a nonprofit out of Brockton. I reached out to Bancy. They told me, yeah, but call ahead because they're really short-staffed and they won't have a collection box if they're not there. So when I got there, they were closed. I got to drop my needles off, but the office was closed and I don't get any containers to refill. They're located on the Kingston line.
Mr. Doyle,
why is this the only option?
Mr. Doyle, you're over 3 minutes, a little bit. How much more time do you need?
Just 10 seconds, please.
Okay, no problem.
Why is this the only option in town for getting rid of sharps and needles? I spoke to the Board of Health. They said that's just where it is right now. All the money spent on these new fire stations, my opinion, each one of them should have a drop place for needles because they're just ending up in the landfill. So those are my two issues for the night. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you for calling in. We'll direct the first set of concerns to the planning department, Mr. Hartman, and see what's going there. And he's absolutely right, because I actually have 2 bags of needles and that stuff, shops, as you call it, and I did take it to Central Station, and there is a sign on there, and I haven't got over to the other place. But I mean, we should be making that stuff easier, not harder for people. That's the first thing I thought of. So, take a note of it.
Sure. We can take a look at it. Yeah, we're happy to work with the fire chief and the public health director on that. I can tell you medical waste is extremely expensive. If each one of those departments does not have a line item for that, it's something we'd have to work through the budget process.
Okay, well, I'd like to look into it because I think it's just expensive if people start dumping it in their trash. Right. And it's getting in, you've seen it wash up on beaches, and so we need to address it. But sure. Yep. Because I know when we built North Plymouth 7, I believe there was a machine in there, and I asked when I went on the tour, and it was to grind up the plastics in the shops and separate it all. So I'm sure it is, but we'll have to see if there's any grants or whatever you might recommend. But
sure.
No,
we're happy to look at that. They used to actually. That's a great point. There used to be grants years ago that the State Department of Public Health gave out for the safe removal of shops. Mm-hmm. So that's certainly, I can work with Michelle Brady, the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, on that.
Appreciate it. And we all set with public comment? One more. Okay. Al?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Al Gennaro, town meeting member, precinct 17. Very quickly, I know you've had a busy night. Again, to the Red Brook issue, there's been another talking point about this special permit back to 2008. And I want the public to know that this special permit wasn't some sort of scam. It's actually, what is going on across the country. Pre-World War II, parents, our grandparents, before we had vehicles, we would walk to the village. We'd have this village concept. And after World War II, you had 128, we would drive to the malls. Well, they finally came up with this idea of going back to where we once were, that we can work, play, and live, as in Red Brook. Sometimes I'll go a few days without getting in my vehicle. So that's this whole concept with this special permit. So it wasn't some sort of scam pushed on by the town. It has worked well. It has created a community. I moved from the North Shore. It made it more affordable for me to live to the Cape. So there is a benefit to all this, and so much so that us as taxpayers in Red Brook collectively are paying about $7.5 million to the town budget. 68% of that goes to the schools. So I just wanted to get that out there, that we, as we examine this and we talk about a corporation, that we have to look at all aspects of this as we would look, having a cell phone in our hand has its bad points and it has its good points. And as a community, we need to, come up with what is good and bad and manage that. I think this project, as the information is getting out there, again, I've said it 1,000 times, the subsidy. Keep your eye on the subsidy. That is key to Article 16C. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've had a busy night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that it, Ginny? Town manager's report, please.
I don't have a big report this evening. We, I say we, the department heads and the division, a number of division heads, attended a tabletop exercise this morning in replace of our typical staff meeting on Tuesdays. And the tabletop exercise was focused on cybersecurity and what we need to do to be prepared for a cyber attack. What we learned at this tabletop is that 10% of all cyber attacks are focused on cities and towns and municipalities. So when we look at that data, we would expect that at least 35 cities and towns in Massachusetts would be attacked, whether it be through ransomware or some other type of cyber attack. So we're actively preparing with our various departments, with our emergency management staff, and with Mass Maritime. And they have a class that's going to assist us in developing a plan if all of our technology were to be locked up and no longer in use. So for that reason, I don't have a large report this evening, but I just want to make two announcements. First and foremost, I want to congratulate Mr. Brad Brothers. So just so everybody's aware, last week he accepted the position of town manager in the town of Palmer. So congratulations to Brad. His last day will be March 29th, working for the town. Brad has been with us for almost 2 years and has been extremely helpful to myself, especially in the finance area. And so he will be missed. But we always have a plan in place, and the gentleman sitting to my left is Mr. Silvio Geneo, who has served for about 2 years. He had a small gap in service where he learned his craft in the town of Wellfleet for about 4 months. So he will serve effective April 1st as the new assistant town manager. And then in his departure, moving on to assistant town manager, we have Jacqueline Gurney, who has served the town for about 18 years now. Her prior role was the Assistant Director of Human Resources. She will then assume the role as Director of Human Resources, again, effective April 1st. So congratulations to everybody I just named for their opportunities, and looking forward to good things in the future. So pending any questions, that's all I have.
Any questions, comments from Mr. Brandisi?
Thank you,
De Niro.
Mr. Chair. I'd just like to thank the town manager for appointing me to the position, and to the board for supporting his appointment. And I look forward to working with the leadership, the town staff, as well as the community, and pushing forward the initiatives that are going to be a benefit to our town. So, again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And let's make it more than 4 months now. You know, you just were visiting Wellfleet.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, can I say something?
Mr. Bledsoe.
Silvio, it's great having you back, no matter what position you're in. You're an asset to this town, you really are. So hopefully you're going to stick around for a little bit. But thank you for coming back.
Thank you. That was only a joke. Mr. Helm?
Well, I see, while he may be leaving us for some incredibly small town in the middle of nowhere in Massachusetts, I see that Brad has still decided to join us. So I just wanted to say, Brad, you know, I've known you, worked with you since you first came on board with the school committee, or with the school district. And every opportunity that I've had to work with you has been a pleasure, and you will definitely be missed.
Mr. Bledsoe?
Yeah, Brad, I didn't see you up there. I'm sorry. Congratulations up there in Palmer. You're going to be wherever Palmer is, but you'll be an asset. So just like you're an asset here, I'm glad I met you. I'm glad I get to work with you. So good luck.
Thank you, guys.
I also want to say the best to you. It's a lot smaller community, but, you know, it'd be real small after Plymouth, but enjoy it. And I know it's just the beginning for you. You're a sharp kid, and I wish you the best. Is that it? Okay. Select Board open discussions. New business, Mr. Helm. Mr. Canty.
Well, it's kind of new business, and Chairman Quintal, you actually mentioned it. In the whole thing about the special municipal employee, I would like to suggest if we could consider an agenda item for a discussion of it, particularly, in my mind, the rescinding of every special employee designation and creation of some sort of policy. I read Northfield, but I understand there are others. We should consider a policy. We should remove all these special employee designation. You know, I'm looking at them. Even the limited number of 10 or so still has some boards that I cannot believe that we would even grant that designation to. And obviously, given that there are 79 that have been done since 1963, and there's a great deal of confusion over which are active, which are not, which were done by name, which were done by position, we should address that and just do in my mind, we should do a blanket rescinding of all of them. But, I'd like to suggest that we have an agenda item.
You have it. Mr. Brandisi.
We are happy to include that in a future meeting. I'd like to, since Mr. Helm brought this up, on the very last page of your agenda, you may have noticed that there's an addition to the agenda, and what we're trying to do is list out upcoming agenda items. So you'll see in the future we have the school departments coming in, the police department study report, the water rate presentation, and the Route 80 cemetery update. So that's a good parking lot where we can put future agenda items if the board so desires.
I look forward to those four. When we do have the school department, we had a little discussion about maybe also that's on SBA, right? That's listed here.
Next week they're
We're
going to come in.
change that. Well, we're going to add to that. We're going to talk about was it the present budget?
Right. So by the charter, we're supposed to meet in a joint session with the school committee. We did it once in January, and folks thought it'd be a good time to reconvene, talk about the FY24 budget from the school side. At the same time, they'll be in front of the board seeking support for the MSBA application as well. Okay. So that would be next week.
I would just like someone to reach out to them, and anything that we're gonna discuss on budgets, that we have backup information in our packets before our meeting, because I know Mr. Helm's gonna want that, and I am also.
Sure, we can do that.
Mr. Canty will, and so will Mr. We all do. It's just
even Charlie.
Yep, even Charlie. So if whatever we're going to talk about, numbers and whatever it might be, let's give us the information so there's no surprises, so we come prepared and we can ask our questions. And I appreciate that.
Sure.
Oh, Mr. Brothers.
Hey, sorry, I was trying to get my mic wasn't working before. I just want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to serve the town over the past 2 years. It's been an honor and a privilege working in America's hometown. And I know not many people know where Palmer is, but I'm excited to begin my career as a town manager in my hometown in Western Mass. So again, I appreciate everything that the board has given me, and I'm ready for my next opportunity.
And I'll be coming up for dinner on you at Teresa's, because I know exactly how to get there, down the Mass Pike. I know right where I'm going.
You're on, Dickie.
In the next town, so that's why. Okay, so we got the school department, police study, water rate presentation. I'm sure we're going down, so I look forward to that. And then we have the Route 80 cemetery update, and that's going to be interesting. There's a lot of new things going on, and we're getting closer. So, Mr. Canty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was contacted by a couple of constituents that asked if I could highlight the upcoming town-wide cleanup that's coming up in May. So that's May 17th and 18th. It's a Friday and a Saturday. May 18th is also the local town election, for those keeping track. That is the town-wide cleanup that is done by Sustainable Plymouth, organized by Sustainable Plymouth, as well as in collaboration with the town. Individuals that are interested in signing up can do so on a website that's provided at Sustainable Plymouth's Facebook page and their website, as well as here at Town Hall. They can pick up the required purple bags here at Town Hall. They can participate on the 17th and 18th. They can also leave those purple bags at an indicated drop-off location, and then the DPW will pick those bags up. And there is contact information, again, on their Facebook page and their website about that for the Sustainable Plymouth / Town of Plymouth townwide cleanup on May 17th and 18th. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Blesser.
Mr. Canty, thank you for doing that, because I told Mr. Stone I would do that, because last time I mentioned him and not Sustainable Plymouth, and he wanted to make it known that it was a group effort. But I also, while we're on it, I want to piggyback on the Peter Balboni from Pioppi's Liquors is the 14 liquor stores. He's got them organized starting in April. They're going to do a cleanup in all their neighborhoods. Each liquor store is going to clean their neighborhood up. So this is a good thing that, this nip ban for the 50,000 that was spent in that election. It wasn't a total waste. So there's going to be some cleanups that come out of this, 14 different stores with a lot of volunteers. So I'm looking forward to that, and they can work with Sustainable Plymouth to do this. So once again, working together for Plymouth. That's what it's about. So thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And yes, I know Sustainable Plymouth was very interested in collaborating with the liquor stores' efforts as well, and had invited them to participate, and that invitation has and will remain open, as far as I am aware, to participate on the 17th and 18th to make Plymouth cleaner and brighter. Thank you.
Mr. Brandisi?
Since Mr. Canty mentioned purple bags, I have failed to mention in the past that I had the opportunity this past fall to tour the old water barn on Long Pond Road. And during that tour, I found it had to be upwards of 200,000 to 300,000 purple bags that were not being used, that were purchased, I think, from what I heard, purchased in 2008 time period, I think, Mr.
Around
Quinto.
there, yeah.
So instead of buying more bags, we decided to incorporate all of the purple bags into all of our town facilities. So until those 200,000 purple bags are gone, you will only see purple bags in our town facilities. So I see we have Finance Committee members here, so we're doing everything we can to save the budget. Mr. Lella.
I have the history, but I'm not even going to go there on that. It was a grant, though, that the town got. Yeah. Anybody else have anything on the new business? Letters? Old business? I just want to say that our last meeting got a little heated, and you know it happens sometimes. I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but I think we need to keep those emotions inside the best we can and treat the staff. It might not have come off that way, and the only reason I'm bringing this up, well, a couple of reasons, but to make it short, I had a lot of comments on it this week and people reaching out to me. And, you know, I explained to the individuals that I knew that it happens. I've been guilty of it many times in the past myself. And I just think we're a lot better than that. And the people do. And more than that, it's the staff that's before us and some of the way we ask questions and make comments. I mean, and it happens. But I'm just asking us as a board to put our best foot forward. And when we have our staff here, let's, you know, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to, you know, I don't know, I don't even want to say make remarks. I mean, if we need information, we should get it beforehand. And if we're not happy with something, then let's just make a motion and vote it down. It's a lot easier than putting staff under the gun, and it makes them uncomfortable. And I've had staff come up to me and say the same thing. So don't ask me who after the meeting. I'm not one of those. That meeting's gone by. You saw tonight's meeting. The vibes are good. Is that how they say it? The vibes? And let's keep it rolling. It can't be all the time, I know it. But if it gets out of hand again, I will tell you if I'm chairman, I will hit the gavel and ask you to go outside for 5 minutes and come back when you're good boys. See that? Go stand in the corner. Okay? Because we're better than that, all of us. So, that being said, and it's late, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. We'll see you on the 19th. Have a good week, everyone.